friends. How are you guys doing today? Happy Friday. My name is Ashley Ariana. I'm here with Niners Nation's Rohan. We're going to be here previewing the game today and also going over a little bit of drama. So, how are you, Rohan? How's your Friday going?
I'm doing good. It's about to get Friday evening here where I am, and yeah, doing good and excited to talk some
Yeah, what
Niners.
time
How are
is it
you?
there?
It's 6:05 right now. I'm in Central Time, so 6:05 for
Oh,
me.
oh, there you go. There you go. Nice.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Having a good day. I was like end of the week, getting closer to the game, get to relax after this. So, yeah. But before we get into previewing the game, I thought it would be fun to discuss a little bit of drama and maybe pose a question to you. But did you hear earlier this morning, Shannon Sharp on his show talked about Brock Purdy and he called Brock Purdy a system quarterback and said that he was not elite. I feel like Brock Purdy's been in the MVP conversation lately. There's been a lot of discussions going on. So, how do you feel about those comments just to start with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation about system quarterbacks has become diluted. For me, when you hear about a system quarterback, many people now assume that to be a negative. But if you look at it, there are certain quarterbacks that change the game ultimately. And then there are other quarterbacks that you are seen as franchise quarterbacks that do the right things and that elevates the team. Brock Purdy falls in this category. He consistently is able to do the right things for his team, and that's a reason why his team is successful. Now, the reason people like to try and throw, harp on Brock Purdy this season is because of the reasons that they thought they could harp on him last season. It's the head coach, obviously the offensive system producing well for quarterbacks, and also the elite amount of skill position players around Brock Purdy. However, just because those factors are there doesn't mean that you can discredit what Brock Purdy's doing, because there is a difference from 2022 to 2023. Brock Purdy right now is playing with supreme confidence, but he's mastered the timing with receivers. He's throwing with anticipation, and it's the little small improvements that have accelerated him from maybe, the 20th best quarterback in 2022 to maybe the 10th best quarterback or so in 2021. And I mean, sorry, 23. And if you look statistically, I mean, it's hard to say that he's not a top three quarterback right now, right? Overall, it's just you're wanting to wait and see over a bigger scope of games like you do with other quarterbacks. But to me, I think the system quarterback moniker is now becoming a little more diluted. I think you can, if you want, you could name several quarterbacks that are in that franchise echelon as system quarterbacks, because they don't necessarily, they do what's asked of them and they do it at a high level. I don't think that that should be considered a bad thing. So if you want to consider Brock Purdy a system quarterback, by all means you can, but that shouldn't be considered a bad thing if he's consistently executing and operating with the way that the 49ers want him to do so.
I like that response. Like, I think it's been kind of interesting hearing people discuss it and maybe ask more, um, what is your definition of a system quarterback? Because if it's that tier two level quarterback, that, Kirk Cousins, maybe Dak Prescott, um, Geno Smith right now would probably be in there. And those are all people that are quarterbacks, maybe not Geno Smith yet, that franchises or organizations are considering franchise guys right now. Now, obviously, sustained success is important to be in there, but I also think that Brock Purdy is showing a little bit of like elite escapability at least, and elite poise and processing of the offense. I mean, he's only 23 years old. He in a press conference earlier today said that he is sure that he's not reached his peak yet and that he has a lot more growth to do. And I just think that I think he has potential to be elite. I think you can maybe get those between the eyes things down, but he does have some physical attributes that potentially were overlooked or not. They were overlooked in the draft, and even last year. He's this year compared to last year. This year he's throwing outside the numbers more. All his touchdowns against Dallas were outside the box. You consistently see him escaping pressure, from running out of the pocket, throwing on the run. Um, so I think he has potential to be elite. Now, arm strength might be not be at the top of the list, but I do think he can elevate himself above what Shannon Sharp meant when he said system quarterback. Because when he went into explaining that, he definitely meant it as a diss. It kind of reminds me earlier this week, Dan Orlovsky said that Mac Jones could be doing the same thing that Brock Purdy did. Brock Purdy is currently doing. And I think that conversation would have been interesting last year. I think I also would have agreed with Dan Orlovsky last year. But this year, Brock Purdy really has stepped up his game. And that's pretty impressive since he had the entire offseason off or offseason rehabbing. So I do assume that he'll only get better. And at least while he's on his rookie deal with this amount of weapons and this coach and everything, which no one says that about, Jalen Hurts, even, and I'm not comparing them, but Patrick Mahomes has an elite offensive play caller. And a different question that I had for you within that Shannon Sharp segment. Well, actually, first, do you think that Mac Jones would be running this offense as efficiently as Brock Purdy is right now? Before I get to the next question.
Now that's a good question. That's hard. To me, I would not say so just because I mean, we've seen elevations from Brock Purdy in his play, and I do believe right now Brock Purdy's playing better. However, I think the debate that Orlovsky was trying to spark there was how Mac Jones, if he was placed in a better system with better weapons around him, would play better. Because in New England right now, that system is not very good for Mac Jones in terms of he hasn't ever had great offensive weapons. I mean, it's not a really a situation where he's there to win. It's not a winning
Kendrick
situation for
Bourne.
Mac Jones.
Kendrick Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne's special. But unfortunately, if you have Kendrick Bourne as your top receiver, especially with the way that today's NFL is, that's just not going to cut it. And so I think Mac Jones would improve if he was placed with the 49ers. And I think that, he would be solid. I think some of his traits are, underrated in that people just point to the way that Mac Jones has physical limitations and things like that. I do think, though, Brock Purdy at the moment has proven that he can be better. Unfortunately, I mean, we're not going to see the answer to that because we won't see Mac Jones in a 49ers uniform in the near future. But overall, I mean, I don't think that there's a basis to say those type of statements comparing one to another. You could obviously say Mac Jones would play better if he was for the San Francisco 49ers. He could look like a serviceable NFL quarterback and things like that. But I don't know if there's a basis to hearing that kind of thing just to prove a point that one system is not as good as the other.
I agree. I also think maybe when comparing them, temperament would be important to consider. Brock Purdy seems able to speak the same language as Kyle Shanahan and maybe not take offense to any sort of criticism or direction. And we've seen, obviously, he's been in a frustrating situation, but Mac Jones seems a little bit. I kind of feel like he's like a dirty player. He makes bad plays. He's always throwing fits. I just feel like that type of attitude wouldn't excel here. And I think Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy's mind really meshes with Kyle Shanahan. His determination when you hear him in that press conference talk about his ultimate goal, winning multiple Super Bowls, proving that he's more than all these media says, even though he in the same thing was like, oh, I don't hear it, but then also was like, I'm so much more than everything that these people are assuming. So it's like, okay,
Right.
well, I think you heard it then because you're addressing it, but I got it. Um, Going back to Shannon Sharp's comments, so we both kind of agree he is running the system, whether or not that really, and he's optimizing the system. He's running it really efficiently. He might not have the most elite traits, which I was agreeing with Shannon Sharp, who was talking about elite traits and mentioning Patrick Mahomes, and I was listening along, like, okay, I can get behind this, I can get behind this. And then after Patrick Mahomes, using him as an example, comparing his skill set to Purdy's. Then Shannon Sharp said, well, and Tua is obviously much better and running his system much better. And that kind of surprised me because the criticisms that people are using against Brock Purdy, having a, genius play caller, having all these weapons, maybe relying on a system that is utilizing their specific skill sets or Brock Purdy's specific skill sets, that also applies to Tua. Mike McDaniel is probably in the running or he is in the running for Coach of the Year right now. He came up with that play call that all the different offensive coordinators around the league stole within like 2 weeks. So he's very clearly doing a really good job over there. But
Right.
That's with the help of Mike McDaniel. So do you think if you were going to compare Tua and Brock Purdy, who do you think maybe is optimizing their offense the best? And do you think that there's a big discrepancy in talent between the two? I know obviously they were drafted completely differently, but now that we've seen Tua in the league a little while and we've seen what Purdy's been able to accomplish, albeit in a short time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this goes back to the system quarterback debate and things like that. And I wanted to say this one thing. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, when you consider Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, a lot of people dub Jimmy Garoppolo as a system quarterback. And if you're dubbing Brock Purdy as a system quarterback, I mean, many people, the issue is they'll combine them all together and say they're the same talent. You could say both are quote unquote system quarterbacks, but they operate the system in many different ways. Garoppolo, the issue was he wouldn't take those, the corner out routes. He wouldn't take those second, third level throws that are the first reads in the offense. Instead, would go ahead and go for the higher probability throw, which would result in less yards and obviously means you need more plays to score a touchdown. Purdy takes the first read, in the system or in the progression of the play. And so that's the difference. He's operating the system like Garoppolo. It's just he's operating it more effectively. And that's what's elevating him as a quarterback, because in a way, everybody can be a system quarterback, but it's how efficient can you truly be and things like that. And that's where Brock Purdy, I think, is at a different level. If you talk about the Tua Tagovailoa, I think Tagovailoa is another guy who has seen an increase in play this year. You talk about the early portion of the year. I thought he had probably the best game of his career against the Los Angeles Chargers in Week 1, but I think they're in a similar range. I don't know if you can really say one, takes you put the moniker on one, you don't put it on the other, and I think they're in a similar range in that they're both in a very similar system, and they're just both utilized in different ways because Miami's weapons operate under pure speed. You've got some really, really strong speed threats. San Francisco's operate well in space. It's a similar space game, just a different utilization of weapons. And so to me, I think you can put them together in a similar, in a similar range of where they are as quarterbacks, given the acceleration that they've had in their progressions this season. I mean, you can make arguments for both. Statistically, Purdy right now looks better. If you want to go over a longer body of work, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa has a bigger body of work. You can make different arguments for both, but I don't know if there's a distinct argument where you can just separate them like Shannon Sharp did earlier this morning. I think that that's where there are issues with just dubbing people system quarterbacks and going on about your business like that.
I completely agree. I was like I said, I was just a little bit shocked. I'm like, okay, if you want to say there's differences between Purdy and Mahomes, I'm on your level. But when saying that there was this huge discrepancy between Tua and Purdy, I was just like, I don't know. I'm not big on ranking guys this early in their career, but I just think if potentially Purdy wasn't a seventh round quarterback, people would be giving him a little bit more credit. I think if maybe a Trevor Lawrence was doing what Purdy was doing on this team with this coordinator or with this play caller with these weapons, I don't think Shannon Sharp would be saying that Tua is miles better than him. But with that being said, I thought it would be a good opportunity to get into the game a little bit. Um, I'm under the impression that the 49ers are going to win just because of the Browns offense right now. They are going to be starting PJ Washington. PJ Walker. Just kidding. I'll learn how to speak a different day. Um, but Deshaun Watson is out. Also, Nick Chubb is out, which was a vital piece of the Browns offense. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you think the pathway to victory for the 49ers will be going against a more tough defense than potentially they've ever faced?
I think when you talk about the 49ers, you're right. You point out their defense. The Cleveland Browns defense is underrated. They're arguably the number one defense in the NFL right now. And it's come with a couple of additions along their defensive line, along with a changing coordinator. They went to Jim Schwartz, who operates the wide nine system, and they've found ways to stop the run, which was a big issue last year. They were near the bottom of the league in run defense. They are now at the top of the league, just giving up 3.2 yards per carry. They don't give up much on the run. They're fourth in the NFL with 71 rushing yards allowed per game. But the big thing is their passing defense. They arguably have the best trio of cornerbacks in the NFL in Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward, and also Martin Emerson. Those guys play man coverage very well, and that's what allows Jim Schwartz to operate the scheme that he does because you're playing very well. They only allow 125 yards per game through the air. 125 yards. That's pretty insane. And they're
Crazy.
getting
Yeah.
pressure. They're getting pressure on the quarterback. They're opening up avenues for obviously for Myles Garrett, their best player on that defensive line. So when you have a multifaceted defense like the Browns do, it's going to be tough to defend them. Then again, we said the same thing about the Cowboys, a team who had the number one scoring defense coming into the week, and the 49ers put 42 points on them. I don't expect 42 points against the Browns. I think they are a better team, but like you said, the issue right now for Cleveland is their offense. Their offense, they don't have a starting quarterback. They don't have a starting running back, nor do they have their starting left guard. I do think Jerome Ford's a solid back. I think they have a fine rushing attack at the moment, but they're missing a lot of pieces and going up against their biggest challenge of the year. To me, the pathway for the 49ers to win is start out strong so that you force the Browns to play from behind, because that was the issue last week. And that's how the Ravens, were able to force turnovers defensively and get out to a 28-3 win. I think if you start out strong, that's going to be a big thing, as well as really riding on your defense. This might be a game where you might see, some of the fluctuations offensively that we really haven't seen all year. I think it's riding your defense. Play the field position game. It might be a little more of a conservative approach from Kyle Shanahan and playing the field position game, understanding that you trust your defense more, and then looking to flip that and getting, favorable situations where you can score points. I think that those two are the keys. And again, it's probably not what 49er fans want to hear, but this is a game that you should be able to win because of the way the rosters are constructed with Cleveland's offense and San Francisco's defense. But that defense is something a force to reckon with for sure.
Definitely. I heard someone say that the Browns defense is what the Cowboys defense wished that they were. Definitely more tough and physical, where maybe the Cowboys like to talk like they're tough and physical, but in actuality couldn't hang around. I think it'll be maybe like I can see it being a big Debo game because the interesting thing is the you were talking about their passing defense, but they also haven't allowed a touchdown to a running back so far this year. So I am interested. I think that Kyle Shanahan will probably try to get Christian McCaffrey the ball, but maybe get it in space. A lot of like quick throws to try to negate Myles Garrett. They were doing that against Dallas too. I think Purdy was the top of the league at getting the ball out the fastest last week. So I think they'll probably try to continue that strategy of getting the ball out quick, short, utilize the playmakers like Debo, Christian McCaffrey. I would say Kittle because he went off so much in that same style last week, but I do think Kittle has a knack for kind of going off in primetime games, and that this might not be a huge Kittle game. Also, he might be in blocking more because I know when before they put him on before they put him on Trent Williams, they were using George Kittle and Juszczyk to chip Micah Parsons, and I imagine they'll do the same thing against Myles Garrett. And I don't think Jim Schwartz will be as stupid to try to put him on on Trent Williams. I think he'll try to have him take advantage of Colton McKivitz. So for those reasons, I can see Kittle maybe not showing out passing wise. But that would be while we're talking about pathways to win, that would be a way to negate that Browns defense a little bit, is relying on your yak guys, having this be more of a maybe less of a crushing the narratives game and more of a we're relying on yak, we're relying on our playmakers today. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think you could definitely see that. I think, you might want to play the space game because if you look at it, you do match up differently. And I think the Browns are a little more sound defensively, especially against the run. The 49ers last week were able to exploit the Dallas Cowboys defensively on in certain ways, and the Cowboys still sold out against the run. I expect the Browns to be similar, but not necessarily sell out in that fashion, and try and find different ways to bracket guys deep down the field in coverage, which might mean just taking what the defense gives you overall, because the Browns have a solid front. Dalvin Tomlinson is a guy who they signed, and that's been the primary factor for them in the run game. really going from 4.6 yards per carry allowed last year to 3.2. You sign him, you signed Zadarius Smith, that provides you another option opposite of Myles Garrett. So now you got two pass rushing threats where you kind of, you got to deal with both. And so I think the 49ers are going to be, they're going to face a challenge. But again, like we said in one way, with the 49ers facing a challenge, the Cleveland Browns are also facing a challenge in that they haven't seen an offense this explosive yet, a team that generates explosive plays a lot. And the issue with teams that generate explosive plays is you don't need that many explosive plays to score points. It's if you can just churn out a few explosives, that gets you scoring opportunities, and that's where the 49ers can separate themselves, whereas the Cleveland Browns don't know how many explosive plays that they're going to be able to generate without Deshaun Watson there, without Nick Chubb there, and also without the starting left guard.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I saw that earlier when I was looking at the different injuries. Yeah, it's not a great time to be a Browns fan, but I mean it hasn't been for quite some time because boy did they make a terrible mistake, and I don't feel bad for them. Feel bad for their fans, not their fault. But while we're talking about basically how it's going to be impossible for the Browns to win, just because of their offense production, their defense is something that should be respected, top of the league right now. I think last week it was Dallas, but because they did so poorly against the Niners, I think the Browns overtook them. It'll be interesting if going against 49ers, that same thing happens, and maybe now the Niners defense will be on top, which I think is a goal of theirs. Diamond Lenore, in like a little interview after the game, kind of said that they had taken offense to how much people were hyping up the Cowboys defense, and they were like, "That's us," and so they might have that. Hopefully, they have a similar attitude going against the Cleveland Browns, and there's not like a letdown, because I know it's going to be like a 10 a.m. game for when they're playing and a lot of travel. So hopefully they keep that same mentality, and they seem to happen. They haven't, knock on wood, so far the 49ers haven't played down to their opponents, although teams that maybe we could have thought they would have played down to have actually been extremely feisty. So like the Cardinals and the Rams, they didn't really need to play down because those teams kind of played up. Before I get in really quick to the pathway for the Browns to win, which spoiler alert, not gonna happen in my opinion. I just wanted to put up this comment
That's my
because
guy.
I love you, Space. He said, sending love to you both, at Rohan and Ashley. Good hearing you guys talk 49ers. Hope you're both doing well. Same, Chris. Chris
Appreciate
is
you, Chris.
such a joy, and I just love him so much. I saw that speaking of, we're not going to do it right now, but injury updates. Dre Greenlaw was out today, and he's been
Yeah.
out all week. And Kyle Shanahan did say that he is one of the players that could play even if he didn't practice on Friday. But David Lombardi put out a thing being like, "Oh, Oren Burks is the one that would take over if it wasn't for him." And every time I see that man on my screen or in a comment, I just immediately,
Hey, Warren Burks
you
fan
know,
club owner,
he's
East Bay Chris.
did you see he Oren Burks like liked something that he
Yeah,
said?
I did. That was kind of funny.
So funny. Okay, but pathway for the Browns to win. I wanted to ask you. You kind of mentioned him. Jim Schwartz is the defensive coordinator for the Browns, and he has put up fits for Kyle Shanahan. Only, I think they faced each other 9 times, and each time Kyle Shanahan has not fared well. So, besides the defense, what would need to happen to the 49ers offense in order for the Browns to have a pathway to win with everything they have going on?
Yeah, I mean, Jim
Major
Schwartz is a
learning.
good defensive coordinator, and he was my pick. He was my pick to be the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Unfortunately, before D'Amico Ryans left, he already accepted the job for the Browns. There was no chance for that. But Schwartz is a guy who operates a similar system that the 49ers have used in the past, that wide 9 scheme, which pretty much opens up lanes for his defenders. Obviously, it's more of a gap filling scheme where you got to trust your linebackers. You got to trust everybody to do their jobs. But overall, for Jim Schwartz and the Cleveland Browns, I mean, the way that the 49ers, I said that they got to ride their defense to win. I think the Cleveland Browns got to ride their defense if they want to win in this game. I think Jim Schwartz, if you talk about him. I think they're going to look to dial up some pressure, try and get Brock Purdy uncomfortable with pressure in the pocket, and that's going to hopefully force some turnovers for the Cleveland Browns. Because if they can if they can play the field position game and flip, to get shorter fields, that could open up scoring opportunities for them, while also opening up time of possession opportunities where they control the pace of the game with their own run game, so that the 49ers don't get as many opportunities to score offensively. I think that the Browns are going to have to focus on the run game in this one, try and exploit the 49ers in that way. And that's a tough task. The 49ers have been one of the more sound teams against the run over the last few seasons, and that has continued this year. But I think it's going to be a more run-oriented approach for Cleveland and Kevin Stefanski there. And I think that they're going to have to look to force turnovers. I mean, the 49ers, they've played down to their opponents at times. They've beaten themselves with penalties and things like that. But if the Browns can force turnovers in this one, I think that could be the clear difference. The one thing is, the Browns, unfortunately, defensively, have not forced turnovers this year. They ranked 28th in the NFL, I believe, with just under a turnover per game forced. And so that's another thing, in that while they've been very stout defensively, turnovers really haven't fallen into their lap. The other thing that I'll say for the Browns, and it is another defensive thing, is getting off on third downs. Right now, the Browns are first in the NFL, allowing just 22% of third downs to be converted by opponents, which is a phenomenal mark, and the number one in the NFL. I think that's going to have to continue. If you can get the 49ers, some quick 3 and outs, or really just getting off the field on third downs, I think that's going to allow some more opportunities for you to dominate the time of possession and potentially take the game away from the 49ers, or at least make it close. Do I envision a Browns win? No, but those are the main pathways that I can see if Cleveland ends up pulling this one out.
I like that a lot. I definitely think if the Browns were to have an opportunity to win, it would be because they stopped the 9 game straight of 30 points, and they help, get get some turnovers, or at least control the time of possession, which just it sucks for them because they don't have Nick Chubb. I know that their other running backs are capable, but I just think against this defense that they won't have even if it's a lower scoring game, I can still see the 49ers squeaking out a win. But speaking of kind of maybe it being a lower scoring game and both teams having the strength of, or both teams maybe needing to rely on the run game, especially because of weather and each team being very defensively sound. One, I wanted to do an injury update that Elijah Mitchell was practicing on Thursday and on Friday. So he is definitely going to probably be suited up and ready to play. I wanted to ask you, this isn't necessarily on the banner, but do you think that Jordan Mason should take over as RB2, or do you think that Elijah Mitchell should be slotted back into that section?
Yeah, I think when you talk about Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell, I think it's an interesting debate, because I think fans, there are fans who certainly like Elijah Mitchell, another group of fans who have seen the emergence of Jordan Mason and are excited with what Jordan Mason brings to the table. But to me, for the 49ers and their running backs, the way that I see the situation is, the reason that they've stuck with Elijah Mitchell despite his injury issues is, one, he doesn't turn the football over. He's never committed a fumble in his entire career with the with the 49ers, despite being a bell cow back in 2021, and now being in his third season with the team. Never committed a fumble. Two, also, I think they prefer him more on third downs compared to Jordan Mason, who is still working in that pass protection range. And I think that that's something that I see as well. So overall, I do think that you've got two capable backs. I can understand why the 49ers might want to go to Elijah Mitchell, but you also can't deny what Jordan Mason brings to the field, because he's a guy who plays physical. He's a guy who, can work as that power back in a way and work as a closer. Now, they're two different styles. The 49ers style, which, if you're looking for more of a zone type of scheme, a scheme where Elijah Mitchell might be featured, that's where he's rolling. But if you want some of those power concepts, that's where Jordan Mason works well, where he can really bulldoze guys and really get 2-3 extra yards every time. And he's evolving, a little more as a receiver and things like that. I think the third down capabilities is really what kind of can sometimes limit his opportunities on the field. But the way that I look at it is I think the 49ers are just looking for running backs that can not replicate, but can take on that Christian McCaffrey role when McCaffrey goes off the field in being a two-dimensional option in the receiving game and also in the running game, so that when you take him off the field, you don't lose a certain package of your offensive plays. I think whoever fits that role the best out of the backups is the one who sees the most time. Thus far, it's been Elijah Mitchell, because prior to the injury, Mitchell was the guy getting a majority of the RB2 snaps. We saw a sprinkle of Mason, but I do think that that's the way that they'll roll. I'm intrigued to see what they do at the trade deadline and see if they try and recoup some value from from Mitchell, like they did with Jeff Wilson last year. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they just go all in and choose to roll with the four guys they've got, and then maybe make a move in the offseason after rolling with Mitchell this throughout the remainder of the year.
Definitely. It's also funny, like we're talking about guys that they would trade away and keep, and Ty Davis Price is just on this roster, but not acknowledged. He is currently a running back on the team that they drafted extremely highly, and he is a not even in this conversation, which maybe is just a side note. But really quick before we talk about Christian McCaffrey and Chris Forrester's comments on him, someone wrote in a super chat. If you guys want a super chat, I can't get them yet because my channel is very new. So put them on Rohan's channel and I'll read them out loud. So For Life Niner said, "You two together is another win, 6-0. I
It's support.
think yeah, thanks for the support, and I agree that the Niners will be 6-0. Watch them just like lose to freaking just another like Colt McCoy game, just one that like everyone's like, oh, not gonna be a problem, and then
That
it's
would be, I mean, that would certainly send 49ers Twitter into a frenzy. Especially with the way that they've been rolling this out. I think the first loss is going to hit fans hard just because of the way that they've been so dominant, especially against some opponents that teams view as potential playoff candidates. The way they've rolled through them, that first loss is going to be an intriguing one. I wonder when that occurs, because after this game, I mean, if you look at the schedule, Cincinnati hasn't been playing to the level that they've been playing. That's week 8. Then you look at Jacksonville potentially. That might be the next challenge before the real toughest stretch of the season, which is Seattle, Philly, Seattle, with 2 road games in the mix there in 12, 13, and 14. So intrigued to see if that first loss comes before then.
I am too. It's kind of funny you were saying the reaction from the fans is going to be interesting because I feel like as 49er fans and as like just speaking for myself that I've gotten kind of spoiled. I remember in the Cardinals game, it was like the one time they scored on every offensive possession but one, and during that one I was like, wow, you guys just aren't even trying right now. Like just the level of like spoiled that like if they're not even in this
Yeah, that's
game.
the way that they've been, that's the way that fans are now getting accustomed to, which is why I'm intrigued to see how this game plays out. Because if they see some lumps offensively, what's going to be the reaction? Is it going to be expected, understanding Cleveland's, arguably the top defense, or is it going to be the way that 49ers Twitter usually is during, some shaky games?
And I didn't even really think about this before, but besides talking about the fan reaction, it'll be interesting to see how the team reacts because
Correct.
I
Exactly.
was listening to George Kittle's interview on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week, and he was kind of talking about how he and the locker room feels like this team is like and this season is like a continuation of last year, and that they in their mind feel like they didn't even like basically they were robbed of their opportunity, which is why they feel like they've came in so um on fire or determined because they're kind of like we need to get that number 1 seed and then get back to the championship game and like prove to ourselves and the fans and the league that this is the team that we felt like we have been. Kind of hilarious. They kept talking about revenge tours like 2 years ago, and it seems like this is like another revenge tour. But I am interested to see when that first loss comes, if it'll be more of one of those games where it's like a fluke. It just doesn't seem like this year they're playing down for their opponents. Like they're not like I don't think there'll be an emotional letdown. I think that they'll be getting up for every team that they want to. They seem extremely determined. Um, so I'm also interested. I have my eye on Philly. I think, and that's why the Browns aren't a problem because of their offense. If they had a capable offense, this game would be a lot more challenging. Before the season, when Deshaun Watson being good was still potentially like happening, and the injuries weren't Nick Chubb was still there. I thought that this game would have been a much harder or much tougher challenge, and it still will be because of the defense. But I'm just not counting on it being a loss. And I think that that Philadelphia game, much like the Browns, they'll challenge them in the trenches, challenge that offensive line in a way that the 49ers haven't been challenged yet. And I think going after the quarterback, maybe instead of Christian McCaffrey, is the smartest way to attack this 49ers team right now. And so far, we haven't seen a team besides Philly be able to do that since Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey have been here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So Chris Forrester was asked about Christian McCaffrey and his utilization, and he said that sometimes he tries to take Christian McCaffrey out of the game, and that Christian McCaffrey says no and refuses to go out or refuses to sit out and will grab his helmet and go back on the field. Um, what is your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is a competitor. I think we all know that McCaffrey, he'll look to compete regardless. And I think I've debated about this because I understand fans' reaction to trying to get, trying to preserve Christian McCaffrey. And I think Kyle Shanahan also understands the challenge in that. But the fact of the matter is the 49ers are so much better when McCaffrey's on the field. And that's no slight towards any of the backup running backs, but McCaffrey is a true game changer, a guy who I still regard as the offensive MVP for this team. And I think that overall, it's tough to it's a change when the 49ers don't have McCaffrey on the field because you don't necessarily know who can step into that role, even if you have a power back like Mason or a versatile, elusive guy like Elijah Mitchell. And so to me, I can understand it because McCaffrey himself is a competitor. He wants to play every single play while Shanahan has to fight, taking him off the field and the repercussions, not only for the offense, but also for down and distance and things like that, because you're probably going to put McCaffrey in on every single third down in a game. And so do you want to take him out for one or two plays? How do you balance that? I think there's a lot of questions that go along from it. I can understand the hesitancy to take McCaffrey out, especially marked with McCaffrey being as competitive as he is and not willing to go out on some of these plays as well.
I agree, but I do think as a coach, it's important to because the play. Most of these players are always going to want to play. I bet Dre Greenlaw, if he can push himself through his injury, will want to play. But it's the job of the coach or the position coach to kind of step in and be able to protect the players from themselves. Having Christian McCaffrey healthy come playoff time is the number one thing, and he's been extremely utilized in games where they've been blowing him out. Now, I will say they did take him out once they were up, 30 something points against Dallas. But I think if this game ends up being like that, which I don't necessarily anticipate, but if it does, I hope that maybe Chris Forster can talk to Christian McCaffrey and say, we get it. We know you're hard on yourself. We know that you want to prove that you're the best. And we're going to give you all the opportunities and in the big games to really do that. But it's most important that you stick around. And 49er fans have been extremely lucky since getting Christian McCaffrey. He hasn't suffered any major injuries, but that was a problem with his career in Carolina. And a lot of people hypothesized that that was a problem because he was relied upon so much there. And he's definitely being not that the 49ers need to rely on him, but he's obviously the preferred option and for Kyle Shanahan and for himself. So I think, and also if you're like Jordan Mason, you might kind of be like, hey, they said I could go in, like let me have
Yeah,
my chance to
yeah,
shine.
that's another battle that they gotta fight, the playing time and things like that. And you definitely do want to preserve him. That's what they did in the offseason. They'd give him about 50% of the days off, or maybe, a third of the days off in the offseason to preserve his body. And that's something that the 49ers will continue to fight, trying to get his snap count maybe in that 50 to 60% range, or maybe only 40 to 50 snaps a game, 40 somewhere around there, which is what they try and do. Again, different games go different ways. You might not play as much offensively, which means more snap percentage for McCaffrey, even though it's not as heavy. You might play more, and so that might mean a less snap, percentage for McCaffrey and things like that. I think it's circumstantial. The 49ers need to do also a solid job of making sure McCaffrey, comes out and is well rested. But it's a tough battle. It's definitely a tough battle.
I agree. Okay, really quickly, earlier today, Frank Clark was released, and I heard some 49er fans talking about should the 49ers go get him. Now, they did just go get Randy Gregory, but I thought I would ask your opinion. Do you think that the 49ers should be open to getting a guy like Frank Clark?
I think this is a an intriguing debate. Frank Clark is a solid player. I mean, there are off the field concerns, definitely off the field concerns for Frank Clark. I think that you can entertain it if you do the due diligence and ensure that Frank Clark, those off the field concerns don't affect or impact the locker room itself, and that he's willing to buy into the culture. I think that you can do it because they just did a similar thing with Randy Gregory. While the off the field concerns were a completely different reason, Gregory obviously with the suspensions due to due to
Yep.
the drug issues and things like that, which obviously is not an issue now, but it's a completely different scenario there. But overall, I think that you can, if you want to do it, you got to do your due diligence here. But I also think the 49ers are content with the way that they are. And instead, my advice would be here, if you're looking to add at the defensive line room, I would personally prefer trying to go after a guy like they did back in 2020 with Jordan Willis or 21 with O'Menahue, a guy with multiple years of team control that you don't necessarily need to fully contribute this season, but instead a young piece who you believe can develop and potentially contribute in 2024 when some of the guys on the roster right now might go for bigger deals in free agency. Gregory likely doesn't he doesn't likely return, just given that he's got no guaranteed money and $14 million worth of salary. So the 49ers either amend that deal and he returns on a much cheaper salary, or he's a free agent next year. You're going to need some replacements. That would be my solution there.
I completely agree. I think if the 49ers were going to make some trade, like if we're talking more trade deadlines, I think adding some maybe lesser known players, specifically in that secondary, would be really important. So the 49ers potentially don't need to rely on Ambry Thomas if there's any injuries going on there. But yeah, I personally just, being a woman and a fan, don't want Frank Clark on the team, would not be interested in rooting for him at all. But thought I would talk about that. I do know like some people's opinion is if the 49ers don't get him, a different contender will get him. If we're strictly speaking by his play, I also just don't think he's as good as he used to be. So not only is he a hassle and not a good person, but also I don't think his play is um, something to be extremely concerned about. Like right now, yeah, I just think there's better players out there. But to end this off, I thought it would be fun when I'm consuming 49ers content. I always really like the betting segments that people do. Now, I've never gambled because I'm scared of getting addicted to things. I don't know. I had like surgery and they gave me, you know, drugs. And I was like, I don't know. I just have this like deep fear that I would secretly be an addictive person. So I just don't do these things. But I do like to bet bet like a smoothie with my dad. Like I'll just be listening to them and I'll be like, okay, I want to steal this bet, and then whoever wins pays dinner or something like that. So I thought it would be fun to ask you some betting questions, especially like we were talking about the Browns defense and stuff like that. So I feel like I have some good um, potential questions that might stump you, or it would be interesting to hear why you would or would not choose certain things. If you would be open to doing something like that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. Do you think that Brock Purdy over or under? Do you think Brock Purdy will throw for 200 yards?
200, I believe that Brock Purdy should hit the over on that. I know the 49ers, I think that when you look at the statistics, Cleveland obviously limiting teams to 125 yards. I don't know if it'll
Yeah.
be, a marquee Brock Purdy performance overall, but I think that he'll get enough volume, and the 49ers will try and, dare Cleveland by throwing a little bit more with them trying to sell out the run. And I think that with them selling out the run, you'll see some opportunities, and I think he'll hit the over.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. I put it pretty low, but it was because I saw that the Cleveland defense had kept quarterbacks to under that for so long. So I was like, all right. If normally I feel like that would be a really low number, but against this defense, it could be an accomplishment. So next, I was wanted to ask, do you think that Christian McCaffrey will score, or over and under, sorry, I'm new to that. Over under 1.5 touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey. Really quickly, before answering, I'd like to remind the audience that if there is any bet, which I don't think there probably is, that is only for 0.5, you should definitely take that because he has scored a touchdown in 14 straight games. The record
15.
is by,
It's going to be
what is it?
15.
It's
It's
gonna
going
be
to be
15.
15.
The record is held by a guy named Lenny Moore. I got this from Steph Sanchez, and it's a touchdown in 18 straight games. And in that same interview that I mentioned earlier that George Kittle did, he talked about the 49ers in their team meetings have talked about trying to beat that record with Christian McCaffrey, which is why he's been the first person to score a touchdown on this team in the last 5 games. So they are 100% going for that 18 games in a row touchdown record. So if there's any bet that Christian McCaffrey gets 1 touchdown, you should take it, which is why I'm asking you, do you think he'll score 2? Over
I
under
don't think so.
1.5.
Yeah, I think it'll be 1 in this game. And I mean, this is a tough one, but I do think that the Browns will operate in a similar pretense to the Cowboys in looking to sell out against Christian McCaffrey. I think that that's going to be their goal. They're going to try and stop Christian McCaffrey at all costs and hope that their coverage kind of holds up on the back end. And that's why I think he'll only get 1 touchdown in this game. I do think he'll continue the streak, but I think it'll only be 1 touchdown for Christian McCaffrey in this game, and instead a spread around for the other weapons elsewhere.
I agree. And even that will be an accomplishment because we were just talking about earlier. So far, the Browns have not given up a single touchdown to a running back. But I do think that Christian McCaffrey will beat that with 1. But if I was engaging in this 1.5 bet, would potentially agree that I don't think he will get 2. Now, I said that I hypothesized this could be a big Debo game because I think that the 49ers will rely a lot on getting the ball out quickly. And Yak, do you think that Debo Samuel will score over or under 0.5 touchdowns?
That's another good question, right? You talk about Debo Samuel. He's had some up games. He's had some down games overall.
Yeah.
I think last week he had 3 catches, 55 yards. I will probably go with the under here. Samuel has 1 touchdown this year, and that was with Brandon Ayuk out against New York Giants. That was his major game of the year. I just think with everybody on the field, as well as Cleveland's strong defense, I don't think he'll get a touchdown in this one.
Okay, we disagree. I think that this is.
There we go.
I know he hasn't gone up, but I feel like every game.
This is the one.
I don't play fantasy, but I have a friend who does, and she always says you can't take a 49ers wide receiver because a different one's going to go off every game. So because Devo hasn't had his multi-touchdown going off game yet, I'm like, this is going to be the one. Especially just the way that the Browns defense is goes against our offense. I think it potentially could be a good game for Debo. But so I'll ask you about the other wide receiver, breakout wide receiver this year. Everyone should be considering him the wide receiver 1, Brandon Ayuk. Do you think that he will get over or under 0.5 touchdowns?
I probably will go with the under here as well. I don't think either receiver will get a touchdown.
You're
Instead,
putting it a lower scoring game.
I do think it'll be lower
No
scoring.
one's scoring a touchdown.
I do think it'll be lower scoring, but I don't think either receiver will get a touchdown. I think it'll be more of a George Kittle game for the second consecutive week. I think that's where the touchdown scoring, be it 1 or 2 touchdowns that way, might happen. I think that's where I'm going to go with this one, given the strong cornerback play that Cleveland has.
I like this. Okay. See, I was doubting Kittle, and you're like, no, my man, he's coming. He's coming. So if you said over under 0.5 touchdowns for George Kittle, would you take the over on that?
I would take the over on that one. Yeah, for this week, that's where I'm going to go with the over for.
I like that. Okay. I'll go under. I'm putting my money on Debo. You're putting it on George Kittle, which could be the right choice.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Now let's go defense. Over under. How do I say it if I want to do 1.5 sacks for Nick Bosa?
Ooh, that's tough. I will go with the under just because we've seen a spread of defensive talent get sacks and get opportunities. The 49ers also this season have not gotten that many sacks this year. You look at their sack rate; they're actually
Yeah.
24th in the NFL, but it's not because they're not pressuring the quarterback. It's just because quarterbacks are getting the ball out when the pressure comes, and it's short, and that's what leads to them getting off the field and things like that. I don't know how many sacks the 49ers will get overall in this one, and that's why I'm going to go with the under here, while I also think that it'll be spread apart overall in terms of where the sacks go.
Bebop Jones thinks that he's going to get 5 sacks, so take
If that
that.
happens, I mean,
Um,
49er fans will be very happy.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, well, you were speaking about the other guy, so that was my next over under is over under 1.5 sacks for everyone who on the defensive line who's not Nick Bosa. So do you think that the other guys will get more
Uh,
than 1 sack?
yeah, definitely. I do think that there will be at least 1 sack going somewhere around apart from Nick Bosa.
Not at least 1. I might have said that wrong. It has to be more
Oh,
than
at
1
least 2?
because over 0.5 over
I'll go with
1.5.
yeah. I'll go with yeah. I think that you might see 3 sacks. Bosa gets 1, 2 or other players get the 2.
Okay, cool. I like that. I want to say I want to be bold. I want to say that I think Nick Bosa will get 2, and like I want to go over both. I think that the rest of the team will get more than 1, and I think also Nick Bosa will get more than 1.
Big
Now,
sack game then.
What about Miles Garrett? Over or under should I do 0.5? Over under 0.5 sacks for Miles Garrett. Brock
I think
Purdy
that
will be going
happens.
down.
Unfortunately, I do think that happens. Purdy has done very well getting the ball out quick, and the 49ers, that's going to be a plan. But I do think that Garrett will get to the quarterback once. The Browns do a good job, of isolating him in one-on-one matchups. And if that's against McKivitz, I think that 1 sack might come up.
I agree. Okay, now what about over under? I'm gonna go 0.5 interceptions for Brock Purdy. Will
Um,
he throw his?
ooh,
Will he throw an interception finally, or will he keep the streak alive?
I think I'm going to go with the under on this one. I do think Cleveland's defense is good, but I think Purdy keeps the streak alive because Cleveland hasn't really forced too many turnovers, and Purdy hasn't thrown the ball in, errantly to defenders that much, like at all, really, this year, right? With 0 interceptions, very few turnover worthy plays. Going to go with the under here, which is pretty good sign of confidence in Brock Purdy.
Yeah, he's had a couple of turnover worthy plays, but he's had excellent luck, and for the most part, he's protected the ball. I want to be kind of a little chaotic. I want to go over. I think he'll throw 1. I still think the 49ers will win by like a lot, but I want to see some chaos. I want to get some blood pumping in here. Let's not just have it be like a 40-3 game. Okay, so I'm going to say Brock Purdy's going to throw 1 interception. Now, over under point one, or 1.5 interceptions for PJ Walker. So do you think he'll throw more than 1 interception?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that PJ Walker, I don't think it'll be over. I know Dorian Thompson Robinson had 3 last week. Well, actually, I don't know. I think 2 interceptions sounds good. So I'll go with the over, actually. I'll put my trust in the 49ers defense. I'll go with the over for this one.
I also think over. I almost made it 2 point, like I almost made it so you had to choose between 2 or 3 because I thought that would have maybe even been
Hmm.
harder. But I thought maybe you wouldn't go for that one, and I
Yeah,
wanted to
probably
be a
not. But
little.
hey, I mean, I think 2 interceptions, that'll be a pretty darn good job for, for the defense if they can get that done.
I agree. Okay, lastly, I don't know how to word this in over and under terms. Once again, not it's called bets for non-betters. So I've actually never placed a real bet in my life. Besides just betting like a Coke. But over under 1 Sam Darnold sighting. How do I do that? Do you? But not because of
Okay. Will
injury.
Sam
How do
Darnold
I
see the
clarify?
field or
How
not?
do I clarify?
Will
Not
Sam
because of
Darnold see the
injury.
field, or will Sam Darnold over under 0.5 snaps for Sam Darnold? How about that?
But I want to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's do that. Yeah. What do you
I
think?
don't. Oh, I don't.
I'm
Let's say
thinking
yes. I
I'm
think
talking
that
like
he might come
blowout.
out for the victory formation because the 49ers are going to be up by a good amount at the end. So, yeah, I'll go with yes for this one.
Okay, what about not for the final kneel down?
Okay. I mean, I think I'll still go yes. I think I'll still go yes. I think he gets a series or so.
Okay,
Yeah,
what's your
I'll go
score
yes.
prediction? What's your score prediction then? Do you have one?
I'll probably go like 24-7, somewhere around there. I just don't see Cleveland scoring that much at all. So maybe 24-7 or 24-6, somewhere around there. 49ers, their offense tempered, but still 24 points, and I think Cleveland only scores 6 points, somewhere around there.
I like that. I'm gonna steal your 24, and then I'm gonna go 10. Is 10 too much? I feel like I can see them getting like one touchdown because the
And one
49ers
field
are
goal.
good for giving up one and then just like one field goal. But I could even see it being 7. But I like your 24. I wanna be bold though. I almost want to go. What's 24 plus 7? Don't worry, I can't do math.
31.
31. I want to be bolder because last week I thought I went bolder. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be more ballsy or whatever. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but and I ended up going in the 30s, and then I regret it. I was like, I went too
It
low.
went to the
So I'm gonna
40s.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna I wanna say that I think, especially if we see Sam Darnold, and I'm saying we're gonna see Sam Darnold. So I'm gonna say 10 to 31. That seems good.
Okay. I like it. I like
Okay.
it. I like it.
Okay. Well, I had so much fun doing this with you. Thanks for kind of entertaining that last segment. I know it was just more for fun. But I always learn so much from you and from your articles. I hope that anyone watching goes and reads Rohan. He's so informative and just all around such a kind, amazing person. He's helped me a lot whenever I've had questions. I encourage anyone to do this the same. I always just will DM him and be like, "Can you explain this to me?" And he's been extremely, extremely helpful and kind to me. So I'm so glad that we were able to do a show together. And I will be back on Sunday. I think I'm going to be doing a post game with Steph Sanchez. So I might not do my
Perfect.
usual instant reaction. I haven't exactly figured out how I'm going to do that, but I'm really excited to be doing that. Until then, please like and subscribe because I'm going to be putting out little videos up until Sunday. So for the rest of tonight and tomorrow, be sure to watch out for that and click subscribe and turn on my notifications so you can tell the next time I go live because I'll go live on Sunday and again on Monday. And I'll link Rohan's channel in the description. I'm sure a lot of you guys are just here from his channel anyways, but I'll be sure to link that and to link his Twitter so you guys can find his articles as well. Rohan, is there anything else that you'd like to say? Any last minute things and anything you'd like to plug?
No, thank you for bringing me on. It was a fun show. Talked about a lot of different things. She's Ashley here, starting her channel. Make sure you guys go subscribe to her because she's doing a good job. She's starting it up and putting a lot of work into it. So make sure you guys go show her some love. Appreciate your time, and yeah, I mean this was a fun one, and we will probably be back on my channel at the beginning of next week.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Bye. I always end it. I don't know